everyone, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. Today we are going to be using all of those markers that came in the April 2020 SketchBox Premium Box. Because of the colors, I was kind of unsure of exactly what I wanted to do, and I landed on kind of just doing a bust of a woman with an interesting background going on. And the sketch was done off camera, as you can probably tell. The paper I'm using is some watercolor paper, specifically some Han Mule rough watercolor postcards. I decided on using this because it is a watercolor paper. It should, in theory, be able to hold up to those super juicy paper-eating Karen markers. We found out that they ate through marker paper during the swatch and unboxing video. For the background, I just used both of the Tombow markers, the different blues, and then used the Karen blender over it just to help it blend out a little bit more. At this point in the drawing, I am laying down the color Almond from the Karen markers as a start for the skin tone. And I will be going over that with the two purples from the Uni Emot 5-pen set, and I will be also using Copper Brown. At first, I'm just putting down a little bit of the Copper Brown and then using the Almond color to help blend it out. I will also pull in the Karen blender to help with that as well. The first couple of layers went pretty well, but later on, the more layering I do, the more these specific markers eat up that paper. Please let me know in that comment section down below if there's a specific paper you've found that these Karen markers seem to work really well on, or if there are any techniques you've found where it prevents the paper from pilling up. Like I said earlier, this is a pretty thick watercolor paper, a rough one, and I've used juicy markers on it before, watercolors, gouache, and I've never had this issue with this specific paper. I was willing to think that it was just the Copic marker paper that wasn't working with these, but it seems like this watercolor paper will not either. At this point, I started pulling in the metallic red gold, also from Karen. This just seems to be like a normal paint marker, and I didn't have nearly as many issues with this one. I also used the deeper blue from the Tombow markers to help add a little bit deeper shading and some line work around the forehead decorations and the little cheek dots that I put on. Then I start repeating the same steps on the neck and shoulder area that I used on the face. I'm using the darker Copper Brown very minimally, and then I start pulling the color around using that Almond color. I'm going in tentatively with the colors at first, and then I'm going to gradually be layering the darker colors on top of the lighter ones. And I'm using the Almond marker mixed in with that Copper Brown in order to create a lot of the midtones in the skin. Here I'm once again using the darker blue out of the Tombow markers to add a little bit of deeper shading. And to deepen it up even more, I start pulling in the dark teal from that Uni Emot pen set. I won't be pulling in any black until a little bit later. I'm once again just gradually trying to build it up from light to dark. I use the Copper Brown from Karen in order to blend out those liners more. I again use the darker blue from Tombow to add some deeper shading, and again, we'll pull in that Copper Brown to blend it out. In marker drawings, I always use a lot of different layers to help add a lot more depth to the image. I also like using colors you wouldn't expect, like pulling in those purples and the dark blue in order to create different shades. In the skin tone, I do also pull in a little bit of that light green and yellow for lighter parts of the skin tone over the almonds. If you're scared of playing around with colors and layering like this, you can always use a scrap piece of paper to play around with it and figure out what colors work together, what combinations you like, and some of the combinations you aren't the biggest fan of. At this point of the drawing, I'm pulling in that metallic red gold to create a squiggly, large necklace piece for her, and yes, those are all technical descriptive terms. For the base layers of the hair, I am starting to pull in a little bit of blue. Then I jump back into the face with a variety of different colors. I do this a lot where I jump back and forth throughout the entire drawing, making minor gradual adjustments as I go. Now I'm back to the hair and pulling in some blue base layers for that. And these blues are once again the Tombow ones. I started with the darker blue of the two and then start pulling in the paler one. And I finally start pulling in that gray that came with the Karen markers in this set. Then I pull that same color into the eyebrows. I could have gone into the hair with just straight black, but I wanted to build it up gradually like I've been doing everywhere else. I also wanted to make sure that I actually used every single marker that came in this month's box. For these monthly SketchBox and Art Snacks projects, I try to use every single item that was supplied, and occasionally I pull in an extra item, typically a white gel pen, which will make an appearance in this drawing as well. After jumping around in some other areas of the drawing, I do eventually get back to coloring the hair. And I'm making sure to get at least a base layer of that gray going on. Then I start layering some of the Tombow darker blue color over that gray as well to add a bit more depth. I jump back to that gray and just keep on layering. Next I'll start pulling in some of those purples from Uni Emot, and I will use a blender over those as well. I decided to play around with that idea of using the liners for a little bit of extra shading and using the blender to blend it out. Around this point is when I start having issues with the paper starting to pill up, and that appears to be directly related to attempting to blend out using the Karen markers. It seems like there are only so many different layers you can do before it starts destroying even thick watercolor paper. Not a big fan of that. And I did not have that issue when using the Tombow markers and blending those out, and I also did not have that issue with just the Emot pens. There just appears to be something specifically about the Karen markers that are doing this. Not the paint marker though, the metallic one isn't doing this, it's the other one. And it seems to be made worse by using the Karen blender marker. For some reason that seems to really magnify the problem. Granted though, I think the Karen markers are supposed to be more of a calligraphy marker, so they just might not be made for doing as many layers as I'm trying to do. At this point in the drawing, I'm starting to bring in a little bit of black, and I am using the Kiritake Zig Fuda Gokochi marker that came in this month's box. I actually really like this liner. I was able to get a variety of lines. It's a nice deep dark black, and the tip is flexible, and it just feels good in my hand. I just really enjoyed how this one works. Do I probably have too many black liners at this point, partially from Art Snacks and SketchBox? Yes. Does that make me like this marker less? No. Do I think I'm going to use this marker a lot again? Yes. Random side note, I noticed at the beginning of the sketch, her face looked a little bit more of a disgusted expression, and now it just looks really somber. It's like she got sadder as this project went on. And it just shows how big of a difference adding color and changing minor lines makes in a face. I start using that black liner to add some little deeper parts in between our squiggly necklace we have going on. I wanted it to look a little bit more like an object placed on top and that there were shadows underneath it. Basically, I wanted a little bit more depth there. I also pulled in some of the dark teal from the Uni pen to help add some more shading there as well. I also thought that her chest area looked a little light comparatively, like I didn't shade it quite as much as I did the face. So I started adding a little bit more brown in there, and I started adding some more layers to the hair again. Once again, I am just jumping around the entire drawing every which way. I think I like doing this because it forces me not to focus on just one part as much, and it forces me to look at the entire thing as a whole more quickly. Basically, you're able to adjust more easily. You can see how different various parts of the whole are interacting with each other, and you can go, oh, this part looks too light compared to this, or this looks too dark compared to this. You can see how the various sections of the drawing interact with each other and adjust as you go. It would be much more difficult to do that if you worked on just one part of the drawing and then scooted to another section. I decided that I wanted to add more of that rose gold color, that metallic red gold. So I decided to pull it into the background and use it as an accentuation to the outline of her. I also did little dots because I wanted to, darn it. I think it adds some more interest to the background first of all, but it helps pull all of those warm colors that I have going on with her into the background. Because at first I just had the cool blues contrasting completely against the more reddish tones of her face. And doing it this way kind of marries the two. It makes it feel a little more harmonious. Now that this project's almost done, I'll give a summary of how I felt about the different items that came in the April 2020 Premium Sketchbox. I liked the Uni Emote 5-pen set. I thought the colors were nice. I think it's a great thickness for lining. I am disappointed that we got this so soon after we got that liner heavy box in February. Those were all mostly SketchBox markers and a couple chameleon ones. I feel like I have a lot of different colored liners now, which is a good thing, but getting some more so soon after that, it just feels like overkill at this point. The Tombow markers played really well on this paper. They're still not my favorite markers in the world, but they worked fairly well on this project, and they apparently are awesome on watercolor paper. It actually looked like laying down a wash of watercolor, which is probably why a lot of people like them. The Caron Brush Marker Pros, I did not like them. They didn't blend super well to begin with, but the more you layer them, the more they eat the paper. And it doesn't take a lot of layers to do that. And this is watercolor paper. It should have been able to stand up to it. And I really liked the Kiritake Zig Fude Gokochi marker, A+. I will probably use that, and I will use the metallic red gold marker from Caron. I liked that as well. That one appears to be a different formula than the Brush Markers Pro are. It did not destroy the paper, so therefore it wins. And it's a pretty color. I still think overall just getting a box full of markers so soon after February's box is still kind of a bummer. With that, this project, and therefore this video, is pretty much done. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day or night to watch this video. I greatly appreciate it. If you liked it, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. I do SketchBox unboxings and projects once a month. If you have any comments, questions, feelings, concerns, or you've used any of the items in this month's box, please let me know all about it in that comment section down below. I look forward to hearing from you. You'll definitely be hearing from me soon. Once again, thank you so much. And bye, everybody!